This is Robert John Webber, the connector guy. And what we have today is actually different types of sheath or EMC protection that actually goes on cables. So I want you to imagine on each of these, and the three that you see here are actually hollow, so cables will go in the middle of it. This isn't just a strip of braid, it's actually, if I pull it out like that, you can see this actually can hold cables within it. And we're going to talk about why there are different types actually out there. Why do they exist? And this is where they would be used. So I would have cables running through it, and I would have a concern about there being EMC problems, electromagnetic interference, potentially going into my cable, which therefore would potentially go into my device. So let's imagine that I have a connector which is on the end of this. I'm going to plug this in. By having a type of EMC protection on it, it's going to stop that radiation from getting inside the cables and then actually flowing into my device that I definitely don't want to have. And that's why it's important to have EMC shielding around the cable, because a cable essentially becomes an antenna. That's what it is. But I asked a very intelligent man one day, which is the best? What's the best type of braid that can be used in order to solve EMC issues? Which is the best solution out there? And then he said, it depends. Now, obviously, these sheaths have a certain percentage of coverage, and that you can see in the spec sheets. But these are very good because they're flexible. Now, if I look at this style here, you can see that the bend radius on this is very tiny. And that compares to this other type here, which is a bit more robust. And this has a larger bend radius. It gets to about there, and already it's quite elastic. You can see from here. And then going to the extreme of robustness, you have this type here, which obviously is very hard to crush. This is a metal cord conduit. And so if you had a very robust, rugged area where you knew that things could potentially fall onto your cable and you wanted that physical protection as well as that EMC protection, then that's actually what you can get from having this style here. But that's not very good if, say, because you can see this is obviously very chunky, it's very big. If you had a small amount of space only to work with, then maybe you'd have to go for a different style of braid that is a lot more flexible. So that's where you might want to go to something like this. But obviously then physically it has different attraction to it. So, okay, if you had sharp objects or things like that around it, you might want to cover this in a polyurethane jacket or something like that in order to protect it. Or you may want to move to something that has some more structure in it, like this type here. Basically, the key thing I wanted to point out today is that depending on your end application, how it's going to be physically put together, what environment is it in, what is the actual EMC protection required that is out there? Is it going to need to be waterproof? Is it going to be under a harsh environment like under the sun or in a salty atmosphere, which would also depend on the jacket that goes round it? And something that gets forgotten quite a lot, how is this actually being plugged together? So the person in the factory that's actually going to assemble this together, how is that actually going to be done? And all these types of things need to be taken into account when you're choosing the braid that's actually going to be used. And that's why there are different types out there. So the moral of the story is, what's the best EMC braid to use out there? It depends. If you'd like to find out more about this, then please send me an email. My email you can see here, which is rwebber@powell.com, and it would be a pleasure to help you. Thank you.